Craig Smoak.
Josh McCuistion has covered Oklahoma for a long, long time, co-publisher of Soonerscoop.com. Also, of course, a part of covering Oklahoma in many different ways. Joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Josh, last year was very emotional and cool because of the first game in forever between Nebraska and Oklahoma because of the way the Big 12 broke up, or at least Nebraska leaving. Is that still a thing, or do you think most of the players in the program don't realize that these used to be an incredible rivalry?
Oh, there's nothing that makes me feel more dated than talking to the players about OU and Nebraska and realizing how much they don't know. Like there's just it's something that got lost. I mean, and I know when they went into divisions, OU and Nebraska stopped playing every year. That kind of stifled it. And then obviously with Nebraska leaving the Big 12, I mean, most of these guys, there's just no concept of it. They don't know of it as a Thanksgiving Day, or the day after tradition kind of thing like that. There's just nothing to that for them.
Do you ask them, do you guys know the Star Wars prequels? Well, back then and before that, these teams played all the time.
I try not to make myself feel old any more often than I have to. But, yeah, I mean, and that's what you're talking about. Like, these guys, that's just ancient history. That's Abe Lincoln and OU Nebraska. It's all the same thing to a lot of these guys. It's just a way, way back thing.
So, Josh, we've seen a couple games of evidence now. Brent Venables settled in over the last few months. It just seems like he's brought a really refreshing air to the program. And I know that happens typically with new coaches, but the familiarity certainly helps as well. Just what's the mood around Norman right now? What are people thinking about Oklahoma football under Brent Venables early on?
I think that's a really good way to put it. It just feels like there is a change in – I think for a long time, a lot of ex-players, and that trickled down. You guys know how it is. Big program like Oklahoma, there's a lot of, the ex-players are around and they're either on radio shows or they do a lot of different things. And you could always tell there was kind of an arm's length between what was going on under Lincoln Riley and those guys. And now those guys have just been welcomed back with open arms. A lot of them obviously played for Brent. So there's a lot of connection there. And I think that trickles down to the fan. They feel it. They see it. And honestly, guys, I mean, and it was something I think only came to this the last maybe, few weeks, last month. There is a big part of me that feels like a lot of the hatred towards Lincoln Riley, I mean, there's just no other way to say that. The yin to that yang is kind of the love of Brent Venables. Like, he's going to get a little more slack probably than maybe, I don't know if he should or shouldn't, but they're going to give him a lot of leeway because he wanted them when they felt kind of spurned. And so I think that's going to, it creates a lot of positivity where, if this was last year and Oklahoma had trailed Kent State 3-0 with a minute left in the first half, Norman would have been burning. And as it was like, we'll wait it out. Let's see what happens. There was just a little more patience with what was going on.
Dillon Gabriel comes into a situation where the lineage at quarterback at Oklahoma is phenomenal and forever, it seems like, as far as one great player after another. How has, in your opinion, he handled the expectations and also so far the early part of this season?
I think he's done exceptionally well. I mean, like you said, you walk into it, he knows the guys that have been in, and it's not ancient history. I mean, these are guys he watched play. It's not like we're talking about a second ago. He can remember Baker Mayfield. He can remember Kyler Murray. Like, he knows what those guys were and what they mean to that program. I think it helps a ton that, Dillon, obviously everybody knows he's a Hawaiian guy. He carries himself that way. It's very island time, it's going to be fine. Like, he just doesn't carry a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And it's pretty evident in everything he does. And you talk to the players, he organized a bunch of stuff over the summer, not just, we're going to go throw gatherings, or he'd go on a camping retreat with the offensive linemen or go do something with the receivers. And he did several of those things through the summer. And I think it helped build a continuity, and it kind of made his ascension as one of the leaders of the team a little more rapid and a little bit more, natural.
Josh, Marvin Mims, he's had an incredible start to the season. What is different about his success this year versus last year?
I don't think there is a bigger winner in the change of the guard as the offensive play caller from Lincoln Riley to Jeff Levy than Marvin Mims. I mean, he is such a skilled vertical receiver, and it's just fit him perfectly. You know, Jeff Levy's whole score from far, I mean, that's kind of his whole mentality. And watching them just take numerous vertical shots, even if, you know, like it's kind of one of those deals where I felt like last year there was a hesitancy from Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams, whoever it might be at quarterback. There was always kind of don't take that risk. After where Levy's like, if he's one-on-one, throw it to him. We believe our guy's better than their guy. And that's really what they've kind of bought into. You look at Dylan Gabriel's first half touchdown. That was, I mean, it was a great throw. It's a risky throw. If he's a little too far inside, the safety picks it off, and it's a different ball game going into halftime. So I think they really have emphasized this is our number one wide receiver. We believe in him. We want to get him the ball, and he is just fed off it. I mean, Marvin is a subdued guy by most standards, but you can tell just watching him play, he's happier than he's been at any point in Norman.
Josh, when you feel like you have a feel for how good this team really is? Will it be this week, or will it be next week when they play Kansas State?
This week is a really good litmus test, I think, for the maturity of this team. Guys, I mean, and I know I'm stepping on some toes here. This is not a great Nebraska team by any stretch of the imagination. This is a game that OU, and like I tried to tell OU fans, just go in and win. It doesn't matter if it's pretty, just go in and win. You're going on the road, first time, a lot of new parts to this team. There's so much that you could see going wrong, especially the coaching change and all the emotions and everything that's going to be in that stadium. Just go in and win. If it's 24-17, fine, whatever. Just get out of there with the win. And but I think you're going to see a lot of how this team handles some things, because Nebraska is going to throw everything they've got at Oklahoma. We know. I mean, and I understand that most teams do because they're Oklahoma, but Nebraska just has nothing to lose. Mickey Joseph and company, they're playing with house money. So they can really just go as crazy as they want to, get as aggressive as they want to. And Oklahoma's going to have to adapt, and we'll see how they go. But as far as the team, how good they are, how some of their weaknesses can possibly being exposed, I think that's Kansas State. The offensive line hasn't come along like I and some others expected it to. That Kansas State defensive line, if OU's not right and they're not ready, they've got some guys there that will severely punish Oklahoma.
They have played UTEP and also Kent State. First of all, Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com with us. Nebraska, Oklahoma tomorrow in Lincoln. They haven't really been tested much on their defense. We know that's what Venables cuts his teeth on. Nebraska's offense has put up a lot of points, but I still think it's very much paper mache at times. But they can put up some points and yards with what they do. I'm still not sure about their running game. Is tomorrow an opportunity, not with Kansas State being a better team next week, an opportunity to maybe see what their offense or their defense can do against a team that puts it up a lot?
I think that's a big test because, there have been moments in the first two games where both quarterbacks, neither of which were, it's a new starter at Kent State. The kid at UTEP, I thought flashed some good things, but I mean, you have to bear that within the lens that it exists in. And so I think there is a lot to discern tomorrow because we've seen Casey Thompson against Oklahoma. We know that if Oklahoma's not on point, he can put points up and do it in a hurry. And, obviously Casey, with all his connection to Oklahoma, there's going to be a lot of motivation. He's a kid that Brent Venables talked about this week as a guy OU tried to bring in. They really like him both as a player, as a person. So there's a lot of kind of mutual respect there. And like I said, this is a team that can punish them. We're going to see a lot
You're too young to probably remember much of Nebraska, Oklahoma. What's your favorite moment, both one that you loved and one that hurt you in that series or that rivalry?
Now, I will say, I don't know about hurt, but the most painful thing I ever watched was the 2009 game with Landry Jones in Nebraska, where Dannystzman was just running through Oklahoma's offensive line, and Landry Jones is just throwing it for his life. Threw 5 interceptions, worst game of his career by miles and miles. And it's one of those things where, Landry Jones is kind of a complicated character in OU fandom, but I think even OU fans that maybe doubted him and his ability at times can forgive him that one. Like, he was just running from a monster that whole night.
So was Colt McCoy just a few weeks later. He was that might have been their last good team. That Nebraska's good team was 2009. That might have been it.
You throw in – people always forget Jared Crick and what a good player he was. Obviously, Amukamara played on that. There were so many good players that people don't think about, and that was a good Nebraska team. Obviously, Taylor Martinez had his ups and downs, but he was dynamic when he was in open space.
Josh, a lot of people may not remember this either, because in 2009, Baylor wasn't very good either, but Dannystzman had a very normal game for him, or average game. He made some plays, but Baylor committed to Dannystzman is not going to kill us. And Jared Crick had 6 sacks or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he went from like a 7th-round pick to a 4th-round pick just in that day, just in that one day.
It doesn't, there was a guy, and I don't know if you all remember him, a guy named Stephen Good that played for Oklahoma. He's now literally a professional power lifter. He is a very strong man, and he tells stories about having to block Sue that night. And he was like, he just put his hands on me and I couldn't do anything with, just like this guy is almost supernatural strong.
Is there one player at Oklahoma, and it doesn't matter whether offense or defense, but a young man, a young player, you're waiting for them to burst out, that that they're capable of that and that might happen?
I would say it's an interesting thing, because in Oklahoma circles, I think there is a feeling that it's already started to happen. But the guy that, with Brent Venables, his background at linebacker, all the great players that have played under him, keep an eye on Dannystzman, number 28, weak side linebacker, had 4 tackles for loss last week against Kent State. He was a kid kind of underrated out of high school, was a 3-star. I actually had a chance to see him in a game during his senior year and thought, man, this guy is special. And you just didn't know how he would develop. But under Brent, you can see it in, 2 games. Like, it's a different guy. And at 6'3", 240, he runs extremely well. He is a very, very gifted player.
Yep, his father was a great player as well, the former tight end at Dangerfield High School, signed with Baylor. Then, of course, he's in Florida. Dannystzman, heard a lot of great things about him and seen a lot of good things about him. Someone in the chat room, Shawnee Hill, Dannystzman. When I asked the question, they put that name up almost immediately. Josh, thanks for your time. We appreciate you.
Hey, guys, always enjoy it.
Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com, Josh_Scoop on Twitter.